Welcome, everybody, to another Blue Jays Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And as you'd expect from the way things are going for the Toronto Blue Jays recently, this is going to be a Vladdy-heavy pod. Rob's going to cook us up some stuff. Let's get rolling.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, Berto, man. As much as I'm like sweating because I want to talk Vlad, that's how much the vibes are great right now.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, though, we got to shout out our guys at Homage. Some outstanding stuff. If you guys haven't seen it, I mean, look at this. MLB Jam with Bo and Vlad. I mean, Vladdy's been outstanding recently. This is, like I said, Vladdy heavy pod. For anybody who can't see this, go check out the YouTube page and you get pictures for what we got going on here. Check out the link in the description for all this great stuff. I mean, honestly, it's quite comfy stuff, Berto. I don't know how you feel about it.
I'm feeling pretty good. I was gonna say, I was gonna say, like, this might be a staple, not just for to pay the bills, but also just for the shirt itself. The quality is outstanding.
Might have to get
especially with the back-to-back champs. I mean, it brings back the good vibes, the 1992-93 Jays. I mean, we may be a stone's throw away from that now, but hey, I mean, always gotta live those memories right there. So, pretty cool stuff from Homage.
Absolutely great stuff. And it's not just Blue Jays stuff. You can get any kind of sports gear and you know, pop culture stuff, not just sports related, all kinds of stuff. So check it out. The link is down below. And also, if you haven't followed the YouTube page on here, it'd mean a lot for us to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't followed, rated anywhere else, it would mean a lot to us to continue to try and grow the pod. Now, this is gonna be a little different. Usually we hop right into a subject, but Rob's got something cooked up, and I don't know what it is yet. So let's get this thing rolling. Stat Genius right out of the gate.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like you mentioned there, a little unusual to be doing the Stat Genius leading off, but hey, I think that it calls for a special occasion. When Vladimir Guerrero Jr., our guy, has been as excellent as he has been, we're in the dog days of summer. We understand that. The games don't mean much anymore. But right now, if you need an excuse to watch the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024 for the next, 45, 50 games, it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The dude's just been absolutely fantastic. If you look at the last 40 games, you'll probably see these graphics thrown up there. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't got the stat from Twitter exactly, but I just went back the last 40 games, which, 40 is a bit of a round number. It's a quarter of the way into the season. This is dating back to June 21st. So the first day of summer up until now, the second week of August, Vlad is hitting 400 with a 1287 OPS. Yes, Vlad's been basically peak Barry Bonds for the last 40 games or so. And we'll talk about, the timing of it. There's been a lot of conversation. Oh, what a coincidence. All of a sudden the games no longer mean something. Now Vlad's turning it up. We'll talk about that. I'll have that covered for you. But just in the moment, Pricey, Vlad, let me read some more Vlad numbers for you. All of a sudden, 8th in baseball in OPS, tied for 6th in OPS plus behind Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Bobby Witt Jr., Juan Soto, and, Brent Rooker, who, shout out to Brent Rooker. He's having an awesome season out in Oakland. We'll see him tonight. But yeah, Vlad tied for 6th in OPS plus, 8th in OPS, on pace to be a 5-win player on both Baseball Reference and Fangraphs. I mean, there's just no kidding, man. You look at his overall raw totals, they might not be quite as they were in 2021. His efficiency metrics, though, they project he's very much along that tier of the great hitter we saw in his much anticipated, much talked about 2021 season. So what do you think of that, Pricey?
He's one of the most dangerous hitters in baseball. It's what our buddy said, and the Seattle Mariners guy early in the year. He craps himself when Vladdy comes to the plate. And we're sitting here talking to him, being like, okay, we don't kind of feel that way. We're like, oh, where's that ground ball to short, right? That's what we kept feeling all the time. But now he comes up and you're like, okay, what kind of damage is he going to do? And you watch yesterday in particular for me, every hit that he had, the double, the triple, the home run, all to the opposite field. And the one that impressed me the most was his triple. Like, not just because it's a triple and it's his first one of the year, but that ball was at 98, up in the zone, right at the top of the zone. And he's able to hit that thing on a line to right field. It is impressive stuff. He's clearly confident. And you wanted to get into this. I don't know if you want to get into it yet, but about the whole people, and the games don't matter kind of thing. I was going to dive right into that. We
Yeah.
cool with that? Yeah. So, sure, the games might not mean a damn thing. But you know what he's got none of? Protection. He's got a guy who's played less than 100 games in the big leagues behind him, and Spencer Horwitz.
And ahead of him, too. With
And of course. And Joey Ferfito. Or anybody for that matter. Like the George Springer batting in front of him. Like, who else do you got? And you had Kirky, who, shout out to Kirky, he's been great recently with the bat. But Vladdy's literally the only guy that scares you in this lineup if you're an opposing team. So you can pull the Aaron Judge treatment. Now, we might start seeing that more because I think you'd trust. You'd bank on Spencer Horwitz beating you, or Vladdy beating you than Spencer Horwitz beating you, but you'd take that chance any day of the week. Yeah. So the fact that they haven't done so, and he's just been incredible. He's the reason to watch Blue Jays baseball right now. Like, let's be real, Rob. That's the only reason to tune in.
That's why you're tuning in. That's the only reason. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, his season that he's having right now, like I mentioned, is the efficiency metrics. His 166 OPS plus. I mean, he had a 167 OPS plus in 2021. The raw totals, obviously, they're not going to be where they were. He's not going to hit the 48 bombs, although his doubles are up. He's already hit more doubles this season than he had all of 2021, which is pretty crazy. I mean, it just goes to show how many bombs he hit that year that they went over the wall, not off the wall. But regardless, the offensive environment in baseball, we've talked about this many times the last 3 years. It's been collectively down. Home runs are down. Extra base hits are down. If you look at Vlad's, his batting averages on base percentage, they're right in line with where they were in 21. The overall, the slugging is down by 50 points or so, but that's because all of baseball is down by 50 points. His efficiency numbers right on par with 2021. He's having an excellent season. We'll talk about the ramifications of that later, but I want to address what you mentioned about how, yes, there's the discourse about how he's turned it on now that the games no longer matter. Well, that's not exactly true. It is correct. The last month or so, the games have been completely meaningless, and he's been lights out. He's been unconsciously good. Since the All-Star break, he has like a 1,600 something OPS, which is just unfathomable, really. I mean, that's we talk about peak Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds never had a season like that. I mean, obviously, it's only been a month for Vlad, so we got to tone it down a little bit. But we talked about a few shows ago, the Stat Genius segment, about how Vlad's actually been trending in a positive direction since late April. Since late April, he's turned the season around, and I have the numbers to back it up.
Go for it.
917 OPS in May. Games were meaningless then. Games were meaningful then. Like they weren't a great team. At no point in the season did we ever feel great about this team, but they were still very much in the hunt. And as for June, a 962 OPS in June, they kind of tailed off near the end of June, but for the most part in that month, they were still a competitive team. They were still a team that had a shot mathematically to make the season. And obviously, yes, July 1,100, and so far I think like a 1,700 OPS in August. So it's not so much that Vlad has turned it on now that the games no longer matter. There's been data that's suggesting this has been turning into the positive direction. He's been trending upwards since the end of April. Just all of a sudden now he's become the best hitter in baseball over the course of the last few weeks. So yeah, no, that's to me that's just unfair. And while I do think there is an element of maybe there's a little bit of a pressure off with him because the games no longer matter. So he's not there's not as many eyeballs, not as many expectations to perform. Even us as fans, we've admitted that our emotional investment in wins and losses is no longer there because obviously a team that's 10 games under 500 running the bullpen that they run out there, you drive yourself crazy if you had the same emotional investment. But no, not take away anything from Vlad. He's been outstanding, and it has not been just when the games have been meaningful. He has been trending upwards for a long time now. And back to 2021, if you dissect that whole season, he was excellent outside of 1 month. If you look at the month of August in 21, he struggled. He bounced back with a great September, and that's why they were able to be so good and get back into the hunt. But it kind of happened near like in the middle of part of the season where it went a little bit unnoticed. Whereas this season, it was a little bit more magnified, his struggling month. He started April. He had a 682 OPS in March and April. And that, everyone had the sour taste in their mouth. It's like, oh, wow, what a rough start for Vlad. The pressure cooker was all the way up at that point. And then he's been excellent since then. So I think that the order of operations of when his struggling month happened, that's kind of affected perception. But yeah, overall, he's been outstanding. He's been 2021 Vlad. This is it. We are seeing a top 5 to 10 hitter in baseball all over again, and he's doing it now. You no longer have the minor league park excuses. He's been that good.
Yeah, he really has. And I'm trying to compare as you're talking away there. Trying to find these numbers from 2021 and just kind of try and compare them a little bit. Obviously, he ended the season with just over a shade over 1,000 OPS. It's at 945 now. Like you mentioned, his March and April numbers. That's a month and a bit. And that is really bad. To be able to jump at almost 300 points in I guess like 2 and a bit months now.
Well, it would be just over 3 months, yeah.
Yeah, so May, June, July,
and
3 and a bit months is absurd. 945. He's like 50 points less, just over 50 points less than that season. His OBP is only 7 points less than that year. And people love the batting average stat, the old folks. He's got 10 points better. He's in 321. We ended that year hitting 311.
He's within striking distance of a batting title. I mean, obviously, Stephen Kwan's ridiculous. Bobby Wood Jr. is nuts, but like, I think Keegan tweeted he'll need a little bit of help from those guys earlier this week. But yeah, no, he's third in average, and I think second in hits or something like that. It's insane.
He's at 141 hits in 114 games at this point of the season. And oh, by the way, he ended that 2021 with 29 doubles. He's got 30 already this season. The home run totals are definitely down, but that's obviously after that horrific start. In this 20-game hit streak he's in right now, he's got 10 homers and 10 doubles. Like, that is absurd over a 20-game span. Also, the thing that really
20 extra base hits in 20 games is wild.
It's nuts. Yeah. It's nuts. The one thing that's really jumped out to me is his walk rate, and we talk about it, right? About teams now pitching around a little bit because you have that. Well, and people be like, well, his numbers are great because he's got no pressure. Well, think about it from an opposing team standpoint, right? Think about it. If you're going up against Vlad, okay, and more often than not, there's not going to be guys on base, right? Because your team's not great. Or there's an option like last night, the triple that he had. I mean, I'm shocked they even faced him for that matter. Brendan Hyde didn't walk him one time in the entire series, and I'm baffled at that. But if you're a pitcher on the mound, you don't want to give him a chance to hit. You want to try and get himself out. And how many times have Jays fans gotten pissed off to no end at Vladdy flailing at a slider out 10 feet outside the zone and just looking frustrated and looking rough? He ain't doing that. If you go off of his 2022 numbers, which we all can agree was still a good season for Vlad, he's only 5 walks behind that total. 5. And even go to last year, which he walked more somehow. But he walked 15 less times, and you still have 50 games to go. And his strikeout numbers they look like they might even be at a career low. They're really, really low. Only 74 strikeouts at this point of the season through over 114 games. That is insane stuff. He's putting bat to ball like crazy. Even in his MVP season, I don't care. Shut up, Shohei. He had 110 strikeouts. And even in 2022, 116 punch-outs. That is like 40 strikeouts less. That's only if he strikes out, every single once a game. The rest of the way, it's not going to happen. Yeah. This year's Vlad is something different, man. I don't know how long this streak's going to go on for. Baseball's a crazy thing, right? He'll go through a 3-game stretch where he doesn't get a hit and whatnot. The big thing is how he bounces back from it for me.
So let me introduce this new topic to you right now. And this is we obviously go macro. We have to, because regardless of what happens in 2024, what we care about is what's going to happen beyond. We know this is a lost season. We've been saying it for months now. Think about where the discourse was with Vlad a month ago. He had a mid 130s OPS plus. His career OPS plus was in the mid 130s. You're thinking, okay, we know what Vlad is now. We know that he's a good, maybe not a great hitter, but he's a good hitter. He's a very good hitter, and that's a guy that you should be paying. We all agree that that's what they should do. They should pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that contract because now you know what he is. And now all of a sudden, a month later, and this is a great problem to have, you now have the guy that you had that one outlier season. He's done it again. He's having a 2021 season all over again. And I've never seen a case this was wild where you have a player with a legitimate long track record of elite top 5 caliber hitter, and at the same time, a legitimate track record of underperforming and not quite being that guy that we wanted him to be. And now you're kind of confused because obviously the question is going to be this offseason, what do you do with Vlad? This is going to be the highest value he's ever going to have, either to pay him, to give him the money that he wants, or to trade him. It's going to be a massive decision in the offseason. Obviously, we have a lot of time to talk about offseason stuff, but in a sense, you kind of feel like this is kind of throwing a new wrinkle into it, or do you feel like his value was already high as it is? You would have to give him $300 million to keep him anyway. Where do you stand? Because to me, I'm a little confused now. In a sense, you had a little bit more clarity if he was just a really good hitter. Now he's all of a sudden the top 5 hitter in baseball all over again. And now what the hell do you do?
Well, I know you're a pod guy. I know you love listening to your pods. The consensus that I've heard on quite a few of them, whether it's Jays Talk Plus, whether it's Fan Morning Show, stuff like that, is he's waiting for Juan Soto. And he's not going to get Pete Alonso money because I'm sorry, Pete. Vlad's a lot better than you. I don't care what your home run totals are. It's about all you do.
Or your home run derby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was that first round this year, bud? Anyways, he's waiting on Juan Soto. And because that's going to set a big number for what he's going to get, probably the second biggest contract in baseball history, Juan Soto. And Vladdy probably, assuming this continues, he's going to ask for something in around that, which is going to be ludicrous. Up over $500 million, it's going to be ludicrous, right? Will he be paid that? No, because Juan Soto, like you mentioned, he's had 2 great seasons, but there's been a lot of other ones. Juan Soto has not had that. He's been elite.
Juan Soto's a better player than Vlad.
Absolutely. He's been a good defender.
Premium position, the better numbers,
much more premier position. He's won a World Series. He's clearly one of the best hitters in baseball, if not the best hitter in baseball. And you're a first baseman, Vlad. I'm sorry. Freddie Freeman got $27 million. You're not going to sit here and get like 50. It's just not going to happen that way. Now, is $30 million something to keep an eye on, because that would obviously be the highest paid first baseman in all of baseball.
Now, also just to jump in there, I'm not sure if you caught. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Siddle on Blair and Barker. I think it was a week ago, basically saying that from all he's heard. And we know Joe Siddle, very plugged in guys. Obviously been around the Blue Jays. Broadcast at Sportsnet for many years now, both on the radio and the television side. From all he's heard, he thinks that there's no way a first baseman gets $200 million, like a total value of $300 million. And obviously, I think it might have. I think Pascal might have said it too, but I know Siddle said it on Blair and Barker. That one I know as well. But all of a sudden, you're hearing all these things, and obviously this is before Vlad. Obviously, he had another unconscious week, but he was excellent. But you kind of think, like, if the number was 300 over 10, which would be 30 annually. I mean that from all you hear, that seems to be the high end of that deal. To me, I think if that's the case, it'd almost be a disservice to this franchise to not offer Vlad that. I think at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Because you look at the other things, like I just mentioned, Freddie Freeman at $27 million. He also signed at 29, something along those lines.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so all these other guys, I mentioned Pete Alonso, isn't he north of 30 or right in and around there as well? It's like Vladdy's 25 years old and he's done this. Now they've done it more consistently. So it is a fascinating thing. I don't know where they're going to go, but I think
Freddie was 33. Freddie was 33.
He was 33 when he got that $27 million contract.
Sorry, no, my bad. He was 32. 32, entering his age 33 season.
Okay, so there you go. He's 32, going into age 33 season when he signed the $27 million per year contract, and everyone's freaking out that Vladdy, a 25-year-old, again, but the inconsistency has been there. It's a tricky situation, man. It really is. But yes, you mentioned it would be a disservice to the franchise, and it absolutely would. Because what's the whole plan with baseball? Hell, screw that. What's the whole deal with marketing? Want to put asses in the seats, and I'm sorry, but we all kind of have had the feeling Bo is gone, whether it's this offseason or after next year or at the deadline or whatever, not past next year. You let Vladdy go too. What's the reason to go to the ballpark other than renovations? And even then, people have kind of gotten just more pissed off at that than anything else now.
And too, Vlad just plain and simply moves the needle. I mean, even last season, which was obviously the underwhelming season for Vlad. He I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I bet you he was still number 1 in jersey sales. I bet you he was still the most marketable player on the team in terms of national broadcasts and stuff like that. When people refer to the Blue Jays, Vladdy is the guy. Vladdy's the first name they go to, regardless of some inconsistencies in the past. So I think that matters. And also another thing that matters who doesn't get talked about. I know he's a first baseman, but Vladdy just doesn't miss any games. I mean, we talked about it in the chat earlier today. I mean, obviously people listening don't know that, but he's missed like I think a handful of games in the last few years. Which is that matters. This being obviously availability is your best ability. That's the most popular saying in all of sports. Vladdy just plays games, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't go out for injuries. You can pencil him in for close to 700 at bats every season. That's really where he's been the last 4 years. So
Absolutely.
I think that's got to matter. And I think that what matters too, and we all know, you more so than me because you're a bigger fan of the other sports teams in this city. Wanting to be here matters, and we've seen time after time. Vladdy wants to be here. He's been very clear that obviously he wants to be here at his price, which is, very, very handsome. He'll be a very handsomely paid guy. He'll be able to afford a 3-bedroom house in this city, hopefully, after this contract.
Beg to differ. I don't know.
But regardless, I do think that a player that wanting to rep, the maple leaf that you have on your hat there, that matters. That matters to this city. It matters to this country.
Yeah.
And I think that factors in a bit.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think that's, and obviously being Canadian in air quotes, it definitely helps. It absolutely does. And you mentioned it, right? Any sort of player that wants to be in Toronto and shows that they love Toronto is going to be loved by the fans, right? Marcus Stroman got a tattoo of the CN Tower on him. People love him, right? I've always been a Stroh guy, again, for multitude of reasons. Good player, and that he repped the city. He wore number 6 when he was here. Loved him. Alec Manoah, same sort of thing. You go to a different sport in the city. Kawhi, if he stayed in Toronto, holy sweet mother. I mean, just because he's a great player as well. But why do people love DeMar DeRozan so much? What's the tweet that always goes around, right? It's the one where when Chris Bosh left, he's like, don't worry, Toronto, I got us. And it's like, dang, this is a dude from Compton that is here for us. That's why he was so loved in the city. That's why Kyle Lowry was so loved in the city, because they wanted to be in the city. And so you show that as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and be one of the, hell, at this rate, could be one of the better players to ever put on a Blue Jays uniform. You'll be loved to the day you're gone. Like, that's just the way it is.
I mean, if he signs a 10-year deal, it's going to happen. He's going to have the highest WAR in franchise history. I mean, assuming someone else doesn't come up at some point and just tears the cover off the ball. And not like anyone's in the pipeline knocking the door for that right now. Yeah. But yeah, no, Vlad's going to be. He's going to have his name all over the Blue Jays history books. If he stays here long term. Just from a volume aspect, there's no one in this franchise's history, no star player has ever inked a long term deal. No one's ever signed a deal. Like George Springer was the first in the history of this contract. He signed in his 30s, and we're seeing the ramifications of that. Having a legitimate star in his mid-20s sign a long-term deal, that's just unprecedented for the Blue Jays, and it would be fitting that Vlad, the homegrown guy, has a Canadian passport, born in Canada, and has had all these great seasons for this team, would be the first one. I mean, I think that would be something special. I mean, obviously, the contract talk, we can talk about it a lot, but more so just the context of this season. So I'm looking at it right now. 1,600 OPS since the All-Star break. I thought it was a misprint. It's just insane how good he's actually been.
That's nuts. Now, I want to go back to what you said earlier about the games played, because I had to pull up the games to let people really understand what this guy is doing. Like, he came up in May in 2019. Played 123 games that day. Do the math. Let's say you play every day in April, minus like a couple days. It's like 28 games, okay?
He had a lot of off days that season too, because he was a third baseman.
Sure, so but even then, you take out all of April, and it's like.
But I'm saying that's in his favor. It's not because of injury. It's because it was just day off, the R&R days.
Yeah, so he probably missed like
not many
10 games maximum, maybe in his rookie season. And then you go to the next year, obviously the COVID season. Take it for what it is, but it's 60 game schedule. He played all 60. You go to the year after, 2021. He played 161 games. Year after that, 2022, 160 games. And last year, he only missed 6 games, played 156. He's already at 114 this year. And how many games
won this year so far? Only missed one. He's only missed one game.
He's missed one game this year. What's the saying? The best ability is availability, especially when you're playing the way Vladdy is. It's incredible for a guy to be touch wood. Where's wood?
I have right here.
There's wood right here. I got some wood here. Yeah. That it stays that way. But man, it's a guy you want on the field every day, or at least in your lineup every day, and you can just put him there. You just know he's going to be there. And like you mentioned, do it for another 10 years or longer. Sign me up, man. Sign every Jays fan up. I think we're at that point right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, we can talk about Vlad for a while, but I wanted to ask you, kind of moving off the
Sure.
Vlad for now, which we spent 25 minutes on it, and rightfully so. It's been that awesome. Hopefully he extends his hit streak. He's at 20 games right now, like you mentioned. It's still active. So hopefully today, when the Jays play the A's, he can go beat up on some athletics pitching. I want to talk about the other guys. First impression on Joey Loperfido. Basically the rotation. Like, what's been your major non-Vlad takeaway of the past week? Because it's been a while since we've done a pod. I think the last time we recorded was the trade deadline at the end of July. So it's been almost like 10 days now since we've recorded. So I wanted to ask you what your thoughts on just all things non-Vlad related.
Well, I got the lineup from last night, so I'm just gonna kind of go off of that. Joey Loperfido. Let's start with that. It's gonna be a pretty quick one for me. The elevated fastball is a problem. We kind of knew that coming over. We heard about the swing. It kind of reminded people of Kyle Tucker's swing, right? It's very low and fine. But the moment that ball gets up in the zone, and I think he was over 4 or 3 strikeouts yesterday. I swear to God, all 3 of them were high fastballs out of the zone that he had to chase. Now, is that a young hitter going through these? Possibly, quite possibly, right? You look at a guy like Teoscar Hernandez. What was the book on him, right? Yeah, high fastball, slider down and away. Curtains at that point. He ended up figuring a way to avoid swinging at that stuff, and turn into a hitter we all know today. Now, it's different, though, for Joey because his swing is very different. You saw his trip. Was it his double, or I think it was the triple at Yankee Stadium?
Triple at Yankee Stadium, yeah.
Right. Look where that ball was.
But yeah.
Look where that ball was. I think it was a Marcus Stroman down in the zone. And that's a perfect pitcher for him to face, right? A sinker baller keeps the ball down. That's a guy that Joey would love to face. But you've seen the elevated fastball they've really attacked him with that. And I'm just curious to see, maybe not how the rest of the season goes, because I think they just want to see a good sample of it first. But going into spring training into next year, I really want to see what adjustments he makes. But that's my first takeaway from him.
Also, what I really like, we're kind of moving on, more big picture, not just Joey Loperfido itself, but it's just, I think there's got to be some urgency, like from now until, the end of September, whenever the season ends. I think it's the last weekend of September.
Yeah.
You need to kind of find a way to create some paths into 2025. Like right now in 2025, I see 2 positions, penned in. You have Vladdy at first base and Dalton Varsho in center field. Other than that, it's up for grabs. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, Spencer Horwitz, he's held his own at second base, having a very good season. I still feel like who knows? He's having a very consistent year so far. But are you telling me a 180 batting average, 630 OPS isn't like out of the realm of possibility? And all of a sudden we're scratching our head of what's going to happen at second base next year. So yeah, it's kind of shocking to me how there's so much uncertainty going into 2025. And obviously that bullpen. No recency bias here, Pricey. This is not the worst Jays team I've watched. I think this is the worst bullpen I've seen. I mean, you have Chad Green and 6 guys who, I frankly, not to be disrespectful, but I question their qualifications to be pitching in the major leagues, period. Nevertheless, pitching in leverage. And it's just seeing time after time again. Zach Pop yesterday go win a 5-run game after Kevin Gausman goes 8 strong and you have a 5-run lead. You have to sweat to that degree. Now, this is as bad of a bullpen as I've ever seen a Blue Jays team field. So that's a little questionable there. Do you want to see anything? Like, who are some guys that's kind of like sparked you for 2025, that sparked your interest? I have one in mind.
Yeah, we might be locked in on this. A little Ryan Burr.
Okay. I don't mean just the bullpen. I mean like just anything, position player, bullpen.
Oh, God, there's really not much, Rob. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I'm kind of somewhat on the fence, but I need to see more from Addison Barger.
Yeah, that's where I was going as well. Because every time I think of Addison Barger, I think of something that you always say, and that's there are tools, man. You can't teach, throwing a good throw, a great arm. You can't teach power. And Addison Barger has legitimate power. He's got a great arm. There's been a lot of gaps so far in the very small sample of his big league career. But obviously, like I mentioned, he can hit the ball hard. We've seen him. How many times we've seen him hit a ground ball to the wall this season? Yeah. And obviously, we've seen the two bombs in Baltimore that he hit. The one his first career home run, the no doubter off Zach Eflin in his Orioles debut, and the outfield play. He has positional versatility. He can play third and the outfield. I think that's a guy that I really hope that from this point forward until the end of the season, he has a nice little, maybe not a Davis Schneider, Spencer Horwitz-esque run, but a little bit more filling in the gaps of this play. Because I think that guy can be an impact player going into 2025.
Yeah, he is. And I'm hoping he's in the lineup tonight against Mitch Spence, obviously the right-hander. And who's on tomorrow? Osvaldo Bito. I mean, what a name. Yeah. He's a righty as well. So and then they have JP Sears, the lefty, on the Sunday afternoon. So I'd like to see him in both of those games, in the first 2 of the games, just to kind of just get him some runway, get some righties, right? Just to see what you have. You don't want to put him out there to fail, so don't put him out there against the lefties. Clearly, he's struggling. So I'd like to see him against some right-handers and see what he can do with it. But I want to go to a positive thing, Rob, because a lot of this year we've talked negative. Now, most of this show has been positive because it's been all about Vladdy. We started veering negative. I'm trying to veer us back on course here. Alejandro Kirkman. I mean, look, is he all the way back? I'm not going to say that. Because George Springer had a great stretch, and his first bit of August has been not so great. So not getting too excited, but Alejandro Kirk has been outstanding recently. The lack of chase and basically what we heard when he was coming up. Great eye at the plate, line drives everywhere. That's what he does. And yesterday, it summed it up perfectly. Line drive to left field, gets an RBI single, and then walked twice. I mean,
and the home run the other day too, the 3-run bomb.
Yeah. Oh, on a slider. I mean, it was a meatball slider, but hey, who cares?
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? We talked about pressure earlier. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
It could.
All of a sudden now, Alejandro Kirk, maybe he's looking back at the depth chart, and then Danny's not there anymore. He sees Brian Servin, career minor leaguer, right behind him, and then TBD in the AAA slot. He's thinking, oh wow, I have all the leeway in the world. I don't have to worry about having a bad game that I'm benched for 3 straight days. They're going to put Danny Jansen in there. I'm the catcher. I'm the guy, regardless if I'm struggling or not. And maybe we talked about, and this is like so counterintuitive to what we talked about earlier with Vlad. The pressure's off. That's why he's playing well. Maybe Alejandro Kirk, the pressure's off, and he's playing well. Is that possible? Is that a ridiculous take?
No.
I mean, it's a small sample, but he's been, like you mentioned, he's looked as good as he's looked since the first half of 2022 when he was an all-star for the American League. He started the all-star game at catcher for the American League.
Yeah, and if you look at the raw numbers, like obviously, you love batting average. So it's like 254 with a 321 on base, right? The OPS, I mean, we were talking about it a while back being like in the early 500s, and we're like, man, dude, is pretty pathetic. It's up near 670, right? At this point of the season. You mentioned the home run that he hit. I think the approach is better. I just think there's not much pressure on him to try and steal a job. You mentioned that with Danny Jansen, and I get that. And look, there's no catcher coming in right now that's going to take it. Also, the Jays have also had to deal with Danny Jansen getting hurt a lot in his career. So Kirk has had to carry a massive load for quite a while.
Beginning of the year, he was playing like almost every day, and he was very ineffective.
And he was pretty bad. But we notice a lot when he's getting the two or 3 days off and then comes back, the bat speed's quicker and it looks a lot better. And yes, he's been playing a lot recently. Come back to me at the beginning of September if he is still doing something similar to what we're seeing right now, because he'll, like you mentioned, with Brian Servin behind you and maybe Peyton Henry down there, like you're not going to be seeing these guys take over Kirk's job, regardless of what happens. So I want to see it for a longer sample size to even slightly believe that it's 2021 Alejandro Kirk. But I enjoy watching him because like his at-bats yesterday were just fun to watch. Slider down in the way, no bite. Right. And he rips a line drive to left. And I'm like, that's Kirk, right? Don't try and hit the long ball. Like, what did he have home run wise what's his career high in bombs? 14 in 2022.
14,
yeah. And was that his season? He was an all-star in 2020. Oh, I said 2021.
Yeah. And I think he led all of catchers in OPS and WRC plus in the first half of that season. So that's what you could do. He was hitting cleanup. Alejandro Kirk, a guy who has no speed, hitting cleanup. I mean, that was that was pretty fun to watch at that time.
Exactly. Absolutely. And he doesn't strike out at all. Like it's been bad. It's crazy to think as pathetic as he's been the last couple of seasons. Other than, so this year he has 10 more strikeouts than he does walks, but you go to, 4 more strikeouts. Okay. I completely butchered my argument, but 2022, he had 58 Ks through the entire season, 139 games. That's kind of ridiculous. And 61 walks. So he was elite in that season.
Although for him, we got to point out, so it's a little comedic relief here, but putting the ball in play is not always the best course of action for him, especially with those guys on base. But regardless, it's good that he's making contact. It's good that he's performing better. Like you got to think, coming to the season, he was one of the positive regression guys. He was one of the guys that we talked about. He's going to need to play better for this team to take that leap. And obviously, it hasn't really happened for the most part. The offense has been, as even worse than we could have probably projected. But regardless, if he's having a nice little end of the season here, maybe who knows? Going to the off season, you can have I still feel like we've seen enough sample of him like not being effective. Where I think that the course of action should be you have to go out and get an external catcher this offseason. Whether that's, a starting catcher or, a guy that can kind of like be a Danny Jansen-esque guy, maybe Danny Jansen, period. Bring him in and be, the kind of like 1A or 1B to him. But yeah, it's nice to know that you've gotten at least some pulse from Alejandro Kirk, because that's a guy that, like I said, you expected him to be, somewhat confident with the bat coming into the season.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Rob, as much as we love talking about Vladdy and stuff like that, look, I can only talk about this roster so much before I have to look a little south of the border. Well, I guess not if you're in Vancouver, but regardless, not in the big leagues. On the farm, we got tons of things to talk about when it comes to these fellas. We'll talk about the new guys and how they're doing down there in the minor leagues, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's dive in.
That's good.
All right, so we're gonna go backwards here. We're gonna go from like the least exciting to the most exciting, and the least exciting was the one guy that we got for Justin Turner from the Seattle Mariners, and RJ Schreck. Again, unreal name. We talked about it last week. Beautiful stuff. Now, all of this, again, very, very, very minimal sample size since joining the Toronto Blue Jays organization. But RJ Schreck, who before coming to Toronto, played 8 games with Arkansas in the AA, obviously in Seattle's farm system, and wasn't great. $143, didn't have anything going for him. In the 5 games that he's played with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, he's hitting .353 with a .500 on base, over 1,000 OPS, and 5 walks to 5 strikeouts. Now, again, very minimal sample, but since he's been a New Hampshire Fisher Cat, he's been awesome. Obviously, left-handed bat, 24 years of age. Do you take anything out of it? Probably not, but he's one of your top 30 prospects, and you just acquired him for Justin Turner, and he's hit the ground running as a Blue Jay. Anything you want to touch on, bro?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, if you guys recall from my last, podcast, I think 24-year-old AA, you look at the track record, I still feel like it's unlikely that RJ Schreck will ever amount to anything of substance for the Toronto Blue Jays. But like you mentioned, the new kid on the block having a nice start, you can't help but, tip your cap to the guy, figuratively and literally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you just got drafted last season, so it was his first full season last year in the minor leagues. Actually, I think he got drafted last year as well. And this season was his first full year. Dominated advanced A ball, 865 OPS with Everett, and we actually got to see him play in Vancouver, which was pretty cool stuff. Yeah. And obviously struggled for the few games he was in AA, but now that he's joined the Blue Jays, his AA numbers have been great. So. Again, it's 5 games. Not going to dwell on too much. Let's keep moving. Yohendrick Penango. Oh, love it. One of the pieces in the Nate Pearson deal. And boy, Josh Rivera, the other guy, he's no good. He ain't no good. All right. Yohendrick Penango. Again, very, very, very minimal sample size. But with, I think it's the New Hampshire Fisher Cats as well. Because remember, we talked about him, and he had been an advanced A ball for like 3 years in a row, and it really never clicked for him. And it finally did. His very minimal numbers, again, in AA New Hampshire, he's hitting .300 with a .391 on base and an .891 OPS. Very minimal sample size, only 6 games, 20 plate appearances, but hey, doing pretty damn solid in his I guess New Hampshire Fisher Cats debut, and also 4 doubles in the 6 games. So it's been a good little start for him in the outfield. Yeah, in the outfield for New Hampshire. All right, now let's get to some fun stuff. All right, well, you know what? Screw it. Josh Kasevich. We haven't brought him up at all this season.
Friend of the show.
Absolutely. We had a chance to talk to him a while back when he was just drafted. Finally, call up to the AAA level. We know there's not a whole lot of power there with Josh Kasevich, but a whole lot of bat-to-ball stuff, which Ross and Mark love. Gets called to AAA. So far, he's only got 1 hit so far, but that 1 hit, I believe, was a 3-run shot. So, interesting
Makes them count.
Yeah, in his AAA debut, hit the 3-run shot, and then has gone 0 for the last 2 games. But congrats to him for the call up. And obviously, he's the 12th ranked prospect in the org. So something to keep an eye on moving forward. And I'll just stick with the one negative I got here. Charles McAdoo, we came on here, man. We were going
friend of the show as well.
Yeah,
got to put that
up to him earlier this week, last week, something like that.
Yeah, it was this week.
Yeah.
This week, yeah.
Since he's been a Blue Jay, or in this case, a New Hampshire Fisher guy, he's 0 for 17. So,
all right, that's a little start.
Oh yeah, I think again, it's baseball.
Mere bag of shells.
he has the sample size at the AA level that he can crank, so I'm not worried about him too much. But rough start for him in a Toronto Blue Jay, I guess a New Hampshire Fisher Cuts uniform. But now to the positive stuff. Will Wagner, Rob. I mean, like this dude is giving me Spencer Horwitz vibes already, where it's like, hey,
I mentioned that last week on the show.
Yeah, you did. And now the numbers are back. And like, hello, can we just like get this guy to the big leagues yet? Because I mean, again, this is where we get the log jam in the infield, and you're like, okay, what do we do here? I'm just going to pull up his complete numbers because he has been stupid. He's obviously 26 years old, so he's at that time where you kind of want to have an idea of what he really, really is for your team. He's hitting 500 with the Buffalo Bisons. Like, that is absurd. Again, only 5 games, 18 plate appearances. Or at best, who cares? Not me. He's hitting 500 with a 591 on base. He's got over 1,300 OPS. And he's got 4 walks and only struck out twice.
He's going to play the big league level this year. He
has to.
Yep.
He absolutely has to. He has been dominating that level, Will Wagner. Did I call him Bill Wagner?
Well, I mean, Will was Bill is short form for Will, so that works.
I guess that makes sense. Anyways, but there was one moment, I think it was last week, where he ripped a double, and we'll talk about Jonathan Clase in a second. He scored from first, and I'm like, oh, Will Wagner's just driving in. Clase is a beautiful sight for Jays fans in the minor leagues. So he's been outstanding since being a Bison, and just waiting for the call. That's kind of what we're at this point. Just get him up here as fast as possible. Anything you want to touch on there before we go to the final 3 guys and then a little Jake Bloss to end it?
No, I mean, I'm excited to talk about what's coming up because we do have some news. We have some news. I'm not going to let you take care of that. But yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting. Obviously, Charles McAdoo, the one outlier there, like you mentioned, hopefully that turns around. But it's really cool to see. Like, it's our first impressions, really. I mean, we haven't actually seen these guys play. I'm not sure how many Jays fans have actually got a chance to watch any of these highlights, but it's nice to know that, you all these guys that you got at the deadline, you hear all these names, and now you're seeing them actually produce. I mean, obviously outside of Charles McAdoo for the time being, but it's nice to know that they're actually getting off to a good start with their new organization. We hope that, hopefully at some point, 2, maybe 3 of these guys will be, players of impact for the Blue Jays as soon as next year, hopefully. Yep. So yeah, no, it's nice to see. Now onto the fun stuff because I'm excited for this one too.
All right, so let's start with Alan Roden for a second, bud.
Okay.
Actually, no, screw it. Let's go Class A first. I'm gonna go Class A. Again, since being a Blue Jay, the numbers. He's hitting 286, 374 on base, 777 OPS, more or less right where he left off. In Seattle's org. I think we had 3 for 6 yesterday or some stupid thing like that. Hit his first home run as a Bison yesterday or a couple days ago. So he's been great. And obviously
he's a guy that's going to play at some point this year.
Yeah, he did get hurt at one point. I think it was in that game where Will Wagner drove him in. He left that game sliding into, I can't remember which base, third base. I can't remember which one. Didn't play for I think a day or 2 afterwards, but he's right back into it now. And then he went 3 for 6, so he's doing just fine now. But obviously another guy, like you mentioned, with Will Wagner kind of right on the doorstep, Jonathan Clase, who's already had a little taste of the big leagues, is a guy that you kind of expect to see moving forward. Now, Arjun Namala. Okay. We talked all season long about this kid, right? First round pick last year, all this hype, because for God's sakes, we need something. We need something positive from the minor leagues to talk about. And he wasn't really giving it to us. Recently, if you've listened to the pod, we've talked about him a lot more. He's swung the bat significantly better. His last 10 games, he's hitting 302 with a 423 on base and a 667 slug. I mean, he has been great over his last 10 games. And you can really look back to his last month's numbers, and they were probably significantly better than when he had that developmental list stint that he did have. He's been outstanding in Dunedin. Again, a guy that, on average, is a 21-year-old, should be an A-ball. He's 18. So something to keep an eye on moving forward for the rest of the season and into next year. But he's been great. He's been great for them. And obviously strikeout numbers are through the roof, but they've come down recently. So that's good. That's a good sign. You want to say anything else? Yeah. Let's get to it. Let's get to the news. 2 good
Jake
ones.
Let's get to Jake Bloss.
All right. Well,
Tracy, we have some news. I want you to break it. What's going on? Jake Bloss making his big league debut tomorrow.
Well, yes.
I was going to talk Bison's debut.
I was going to talk Alan Roden because there might be a little something with that, but I don't want to tease it if it can't happen. So you know what? let's stick with Alan Roden, and then we'll dive into Jake. All right. So Alan Roden, I mean, we've talked all season. Great AA numbers, finally get the call to AAA, and then hit a wall for about the first, I don't know, I'd say couple weeks. Since then, he's been elite at AAA. He's hitting his last 10, 378, 435 on base. And over the course of his season in AAA, 18 walks to 22 strikeouts. So great stuff. And you get his season numbers. Again, this is after the really bad start. He's hitting 274, 370 on base, and a 765 OPS. He's been awesome for them. A guy that, could push for something starting next year. So very exciting stuff there. All right, Rob. So the key to the entire trade deadline for the Toronto Blue Jays was Yusei Kikuchi. And we were all waiting quite a while for something to happen. We heard these teams are rumored, all this stuff, and then we have to see Kikuchi have awful starts, and you give us the J Happ comp, and we're like, oh God, this can't be happening. And no pun intended there. And then they go out there and swing the most lopsided trade that we've seen in a while on paper, bringing in Jake Bloss, bringing in Will Wagner, and bringing in Thank you. Right. Yeah. And who has not played yet. He's still hurt. He's in AA, but has not played yet.
Who?
Oh, no. Who'd you say?
I said Low Perfido.
Oh, I'm lost, buddy. I was thinking the guy from Boston, Paulino. Wow, I don't know.
No. Yeah.
Paulino, I think was, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, so many guys. Joey Low Perfido, he was part of the trade. We've seen him a little bit at the big league level so far.
So Jake Bloss, we hear all this great stuff, right? These are your top 3 prospect in your organization, top 100 prospect in all of baseball. And we're all like, holy crap, we got this guy. And we didn't know what we heard he was assigned to Buffalo, but we're like, okay, what the hell are we doing? Like, haven't heard squat. Well, fine. Saturday evening in Buffalo, Jake Bloss will make his Buffalo Bison's debut. But not only will he be doing it in front of the Bison's faithful, he'll be doing it in front of yours truly. Blue Jays Center will be down there covering the game. If you haven't followed the Instagram page, first off, how'd you find us at that point?
Yes, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, but if you haven't done so, check it out because we'll be down there, and hopefully we'll see how things go. But maybe a little combo with Jake Bloss after the game. We'll see how it goes. But hopefully it's a good debut, and hopefully he's peachy and it's a great time.
No, I mean, that's the goal. The goal is obviously to talk to Jake Bloss. It's going to be after the game for the post game because obviously he's going to be starting that day. So protocol, you can't talk to the starting pitcher before the game. So hopefully get some sound bites from him. Hopefully we'll get some sound bites from Joey Votto, not just about his odds with the Blue Jays, his chance of coming up here and making an impact this season, but also for his fact that he's one of the best Canadian players of all time. That'd be pretty cool to see. Guys like Alan Roden and Emmanuel Clase, Josh Kasevich, guys we've mentioned in this pod.
What Clase?
I hope the Jays could use Emmanuel Clase at the back end of that. That's a story for another time. But regardless, Jonathan Clase. Well, hopefully we'll get to talk to them as well. It'll be a fun-filled day, and hopefully it all goes well tomorrow in Buffalo. And can't wait to do it with you and Mo behind the scenes.
Going to be a blast, boys. Going to be an absolute blast. Well, we're going to wrap it up with that little teaser. Jake Bloss at the end. Again, I'm going to say it at the end here. Check out Homage, guys. I mean, look at the gear they're giving you. Like MLB Jam, I don't know how long Bo's going to be a J, but Vladdy could, as we were
for a long time,
maybe a 10-year contract, get stuff like that. Doesn't have to be just Blue Jays merch, any kind of sports merchandise stuff. It doesn't even have
NFL season starting. Get your favorite NFL teams merch. It's coming up.
There you go. I got some Raptor stuff I think I got going over there as well. Check it out. Homage stuff. Links in the description. Be awesome. All right. So for myself, Robin Tillemon, and Jimmy, behind the scenes, appreciate you, Jimmy, as always. It's been a blast talking to everybody today. We'll talk to you guys soon.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.